Good afternoon, bros. How you guys today? Alright, bros. Here we go. It's the test server. It come back up today. So we got like a few of these we're going to run. Well, we're going to get them out. That's 450 for that one. That's rest of this. We'll get it. Now, 100. That's 300. 800. 1900. 2250. Something like that. And 16 more. So, like I said, we've been, okay. But let's see where we can do some of these, bros. Okay. We'll do the, let's see. We're going to use our, yeah. Now what we gotta do is earn 1,000 base, 250, 300,000 potential damage. Alright, bros. Let's do this. We'll get this done. Hey, let me show you something, bros. We've got the dockyard done. Yeah. No shit. Or she is. It is a ship we're going after because we bought the dockyard, so. But like right now, dudes, we got plenty of time to play this. So we're going to play this. We're at least going to try to. Because end of the day, we need to play it. I want the community tokens. We're going to try to get a ship this time here. Wait a minute, bro. Since we're... Yeah.
Disappear. And by the way, you've been hearing us say,
All right,
Fox News Alert, 24 nights in a row, drones have appeared in the skies that state law enforcement is now saying are operating on a frequency they cannot
Autopilot
detect.
mode enabled.
This is a national security concern. It's happening mostly in the state of New Jersey, yes, in the county and areas near where incoming President Donald Trump has a home, Bedminster. Lawmakers, Americans across the country want answers. We get nothing. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. The drones are violating multiple FAA regulations. Now, if you and I did that, the feds would come after us. Who put the drones in the sky? You know, on this program, we've had some people tell us. The agency states that drones can only fly up to 400 feet in the sky and must weigh fewer than 55 pounds. These unidentified drones are also operating, as I said, in an undetectable manner. And they do not keep their lights on when approached. Okay, so if you go near them, they obviously are motion sensitive and can disappear. And by the way, you've been hearing us say it, some of them are the size of an SUV.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they are illegal. Fines for those breaking the rules can run up to $75,000. New Jersey Congressman Jeff Van Drew, on The Focus with me yesterday, made worldwide news with this.
Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly. Know that Iran made a deal with China to purchase drones, motherships, and technology in order to go forward. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality. These drones should be shot down. Whether it was some crazy hobbyist that we can't imagine, or whether it is Iran, and I think it very possibly could be, they should be shot down. We are not getting the full deal, and the military is on alert with this.
I kept pressing yesterday. He wasn't the only lawmaker to tell me that. I'll get to that in a second. Meanwhile, the Pentagon was taking questions on it. Our own Jennifer Griffin asked, and the Pentagon claims Van Drew is wrong.
We have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
Representative Tony Gonzalez of the state of Texas was on with me later in the day when I filled in on the story for Martha McCallum. He said that he also has been talking with people at high levels, highly regarded sources, about an Iranian mothership off the coast of the eastern seaboard. He said that without refutable information, that all is on the table. But he also is having those conversations just like Representative Jeff Van Drew. And I'll continue to push. The New York Post cover with a play on the classic film Close Encounters of the Turnpike, as in the New Jersey Turnpike. Nate Foy is in Elizabeth, New Jersey, just south of Newark. Nate.
Hey, Harris. Congressman Jeff Van Drew is actually doubling down on those claims that he told you yesterday, saying again this morning that Iran may be behind these mysterious drones in New Jersey and New York, also floating the idea that it might possibly be China. The Pentagon, as you just heard, says there's no evidence to support that. But moments ago, House Speaker Mike Johnson told our colleague Chad Pergram he's about to learn more.
We'll be talking about it today. It's a quandary. I'm going to try to go get a classified briefing to see what we know, but the hearings have not yielded much yet.
New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy said on the radio last night that he would be the most surprised guy in the state of New Jersey if these drones turn out to be U.S. military. He also had this message for people frustrated with the state's response.
I want folks out there to know listen, you're frustrated, so are we. But based on everything, and we're going to stay at it, I promise you this is our top priority.
But state legislators and mayors do not feel like it's a priority, Harris. They received a briefing yesterday that Murphy didn't attend, even though his office called the meeting.
The briefing I just sat through was a disgrace. It was an insult to our legislatures, and I've never been through a more amateur hour briefing in my entire life.
My head is about to explode. They know nothing. This is America. Are you telling me that somebody can be flying drones over my town in Pequannock and nobody has any idea what's going on? This is unacceptable.
One state assemblywoman who attended that briefing yesterday said that she believes military intervention is the only path forward, and if that happens, the U.S. Coast Guard would be the most likely to take action. We'll send it back to you, Harris.
Wow, well, they better get it near the water, because Van Drew said that's where they should be shot down. If we can get them to go position themselves over in the water, these huge drones. Nate Boy, thank you. Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez, remember I just mentioned that I spoke with him later in the day. Here's part of my interview with him.
I did have a conversation this morning with a high-level law enforcement official where we talked about the possibility of a mothership being there with the drones. I think the fact that we don't have definitive answers is worrisome. How do we capture it so that way we can bring it back, figure out where it came from, find its flight path, find its frequencies, find some of the metadata that's embedded in it, the information that it was sharing, who was it sharing to, so that way you're not just going after an instrument, you're going after a network. This is the level of detail that our federal government needs to be working with our state and local partners to solve, to keep Americans safe.
I want to bring in Brent Sadler, retired Navy captain, former Pentagon official, and Heritage Foundation senior fellow. So glad to have you. Former Pentagon official is the part I want to lean on now. Is it possible that we just don't know what we don't know because they won't tell us?
Yes, I think that unfortunately is a very real possibility here and is unacceptable because this is not a new issue. It's not because we don't have the capabilities to find out where and who and how these things are being operated. It's not a dearth of authorities. We have those. It's really what's in short supply is the leadership. And this does span several agencies.
Yeah, I mean, it was a theme, obviously, with the election. The border comes right out of that. DHS is just blown up to the point where it can't do anything right. Like, we've got that. We've got problems with the Secret Service. We've got problems with FEMA. I mean, all under DHS. So we see this. So now what do we do about it?
Well, I think the first thing that needs to happen, and we're about 20 days past it actually occurring, is the White House needs to have an interagency effort that's led by someone who can speak authoritatively to the American people. So right now you've got a large crowd that doesn't have the full picture. No one seems to be able to take a leadership of what's going on here. So that is long past due in my mind.
All right, we've been talking a lot about the growing outrage. You're mentioning it too, over how the Pentagon, intelligence agencies, and the White House either do not know anything or are not sharing. I almost would prefer, Brent, that they just know it, but they don't tell us, because we pay them a lot to know it. Like, taxpayers are not getting our money's worth now. The 2024 total defense budget was $824 billion. That's got to be worth a Post-it note on 24 nights of things that are the size of SUVs flying the skies over a state that houses a home of an incoming president. We got to get something for that money. For fiscal year 2025, the National Intelligence Program is requesting $73 billion, and the Military Intel Program, $28 billion. That's a lot of cash for what seems like very little intelligence being shared with the American people. Your take?
Well, $824 billion doesn't buy leadership and experience. And so that's what, again, we're missing in all this, is someone being put in a position or forced to be put in a position to actually demonstrate that expensive but can't buy it leadership. And we do have the capabilities. You've had speakers on your show earlier in this week that also say the same thing. It's not a lack of capabilities. It's not a lack of authorities. It's a lack of leadership, quite frankly, and it's not a new issue.
Lawmakers I'm talking to, you saw Jeff Van Drew, Tony Gonzalez, and others that I've been speaking with say it's time to just take them down. Quick concerns now. How do you do that? Because you spent some time on a warship, on a submarine. Tell us how you do that.
Well, there's several ways. I mean, you could shoot it out of the sky with small caliber guns. You could let it go up higher if it's something the size of an SUV. Obviously, you don't want to do that over American coast or townships.
100%.
Another one that also has a lot of risk is you could use radio frequencies. You could try and jam, or you could try to take over the signal and control of it. That also has problems because if someone's pacemaker, or if you've got other sensitive electronic equipment nearby that are people's livelihoods are relying on, you might also interfere with that. So there is no free ticket in this. And again, we've been admiring this problem over our shores for well over 8 years.
Brent Sadler, always great to get your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, another horrific crime has been allegedly committed by an illegal immigrant. Just before Christmas now, a Texas family has been left grieving the killing of their only child, a 7-year-old little girl. And in Chicago, people who live there, yet again, are going after their sanctuary city's mayor and how he handles illegal immigrants.
You guys fighting for some illegal aliens who haven't put a dime in this country. This falls on you. We don't want illegals in our community. We don't want migrants terrorizing our own people.
Hundreds of millions going to caring for illegals. Again, a lot of money that the feds have in their hands, while the citizens struggle. President-elect Trump's incoming border czar says the mayor in Chicago had better stay out of his way when he comes to town to fix the mess. Republican Senator Rick Scott in Focus next. Had lost their child. 7-year-old Ivory Smith is gone this Christmas season. The crime that took her life allegedly committed by an illegal immigrant. Police say the illegal alien from Venezuela was driving drunk when he ran a red light and crashed into the car Ivory's mom was driving. Now this part. According to police, the suspect took pictures of the crash and then drove off instead of trying to help the victims. Ivory's family says they should be preparing for Christmas. Instead, look at her, she's beautiful. Instead, they're making funeral plans. Her mom was also injured in the crash and was just released from the hospital. Republican Congresswoman Kat Cammack says the blame for illegal immigrant crime has a single source.
You can't even imagine the depravity that takes place in every single community as a result of Biden's open border crisis. It is worse than people realize. Under the Biden administration, they didn't care. They let Americans die, and their blood is on their hands.
Brooke Taylor is in Dallas, Texas, with more on this tragic story. Brooke.
Harris, ICE sources tell me that the suspect in this case is an illegal migrant from Venezuela. He crossed over in 2021 in Eagle Pass. Now he's charged with intoxicated manslaughter. The family, though, of this 7-year-old little girl tells me this could have been avoided. Their little girl should be here because of a number of reasons. Court records show that Joel Enrique Gonzalez Chacin was arrested for assaulting a family member in 2024. Well, the case, it was dropped to a misdemeanor, and after his conviction, ICE officials tell me he was turned over to them only for ICE to lift that hold. So that meant he was free to be released into the community instead of being deported. So now, just 2.5 months after that decision, he is now accused of drinking and driving in the crash that killed Ivory Smith.
You came over here illegal. So that means you don't follow the law and you think that you're above the law. And now you feel like you can do what you want to do. He definitely put a hole in everyone's heart in the family. And now it is my job for her to find and seek justice for her.
And Fox News got exclusive internal ICE data revealing the nationalities of more than 1.4 million illegal migrants in the United States who have been ordered deported by an immigration judge and are not in ICE custody. This includes nearly 38,000 Chinese nationals. Other top countries include Brazil, Haiti, and Venezuela. And while the majority of the 1.4 million illegal migrants that are ordered to be deported come from countries countries that are easy to remove, like Mexico. That ICE exclusive data also has a list of countries that refuse to cooperate with the United States. This includes Russia, China, and also Venezuela. Harris.
Thank you. That graphic with where they're coming from, that is useful information because we know a lot of those people coming from Venezuela are attached to gangs. Thank you very much for the great reporting.
Man, Brandon Johnson, you took an oath to uphold the Constitution. Or when you took an oath, was it only intended to fight for the 10th and 14th Amendments regarding illegal aliens? You guys fighting for some illegal aliens who haven't put a dime in this country. This falls on you.
We don't want illegals in our community. We don't want migrants terrorizing our own people. And to have y'all sit up here and say we have to accept $70 million being given to them when you got black people who are already struggling and need help, it is a disgrace. It is a disgrace.
You want to know why Donald Trump won? You're watching it. Yes, it was the economy, but this is disgraceful. We've seen it so many times. Chicago residents venting their rage over their mayor's handling of the illegal immigrant crisis there. Incoming border czar Tom Homan says that city in particular is priority number one, and he's not messing around.
Chicago's in trouble because your mayor sucks and your governor sucks. And we're going to start right here in Chicago, Illinois. Now, if your Chicago mayor doesn't want to help, he can step aside. But if he impedes us, if he knowingly harbors and conceals an illegal alien, I will prosecute him.
There you go. Tom Homan, the incoming border czar, referencing Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. He is one of the Democrats leading the resistance to President-elect Trump's plans. They're trying to Trump-proof their states, they say. Pritzker said this.
I'm open to a dialogue with him. I will say that he does not have the authority to do the things that he's talked about. Being a border czar is not an official position in the government, and will be up to the President of the United States and up to the leaders of the Customs and Border Patrol to make decisions about how we'll manage the border.
You know who's really mad about that now? Kamala Harris. Because she had that job. Anyway, Trump's plans reportedly include scrapping a policy that prevents immigration and customs agents from arresting illegal immigrants at or near so-called sensitive locations without a supervisor's permission. Those places include churches, schools, hospitals, and at certain events like weddings and funerals. In focus now, Republican Senator Rick Scott of the great state of Florida, member of Homeland Security, Armed Services, and Budget Committees. Those things come all together now. We spend so much money for DHS to get this right. Why can't that happen?
You know, I've got two 7-year-old grandsons, and if I lost them, I would be devastated. Why doesn't Joe Biden, why doesn't Pritzker, why doesn't the mayor of Chicago, why does Mayorkas, why don't they care? So Donald Trump won. He won a mandate to clean up the mess that Biden created. So we are going to secure the border. And if you're here illegally, you can't be here. Think about it. We have almost 40,000 Chinese nationals. These are generally single adults. Why are they here? They need to be sent back to China immediately. China's basically threatening war with the United States. We should not have anybody like that. And by the way, if they don't allow us to send them back, then why are we allowing flights to come here from China? There's so many things we can do to enforce our laws. So I'm glad Donald Trump is committed to doing this. I'm committed to doing it. Our focus in January has to be to give Donald Trump all the resources he needs to clean up the mess that Joe Biden created.
40 more days of this. I mean, Biden could do something great for the country and at least help out in the next 40 days to slow this down. You mentioned, in reference to 7-year-old Ivory Smith, our hearts break. But they keep breaking. Laken Riley, Jocelyn Nungary, there's so many of these victims now. This is untenable.
Well, and then I'm on Homeland Security, and the Democrats canceled the hearing where Mayorkas was supposed to come testify because they know that he can't defend the loss of all this life. I mean, I don't get how, doesn't he have a heart? Doesn't he have somebody in his life that he worries about, that somebody here illegally, unvetted, might harm? I don't get it.
Well, the New York Times apparently is coming around to what Fox News has been reporting and seeing with our own eyes for years. Here's the headline from yesterday. Recent immigration surge has been largest in the U.S. history under President Biden. More than 2 million immigrants per year have entered, government data shows. Well, we know they can read, so now they can write it. Some reaction. This is the mother of all now it can be told stories from the New York Times, and it's remarkable that this story finally came over a month after the election. A New York Post opinion piece with this headline. The New York Times finally tells the truth about Biden's border failures after the elections.
Yeah.
Senator Scott, I want to get your reaction to that, and also if you could just mix in 40 more days of this. What can be done? So let's start with first your reaction.
Well, first off, I mean, the New York Times is it's a political part of the Democrat Party. But I just don't understand why they don't care. So, well, we know what our job is. Trump won. We've got to get this done. I wish Mayorkas would start doing his job, but I'm very appreciative of Trump and Tom Homan that people are going to do it. I'm going to do everything I can. You know, we love immigration in this country. Legal immigration.
Right.
We want people in this country that want to live our dream and be part of building our country, not destroying our country through crime and through bringing socialism to our country. This is disgusting what Biden has done. And the Democrats have all been on board.
As we've seen in places like Aurora, Colorado, some of those people who've come here legally, those migrants are some of the first ones to become victims of those who are here illegally, those particular communities. Senator, thank you for being with me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Harris. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. And you see Tom Homan there. I believe that's who that is with him. He's going to meet with the mayor of New York City today for their illegal immigration crisis that they have blown up here. The president-elect Trump at the New York Stock Exchange this morning, and I've been told that is not Tom Homan, so I need to check my eyesight from this distance on the monitor. The incoming president is celebrating Time magazine naming him the Person of the Year. That's just part of the buzz the president-elect has been whipping up. New polling shows that a Trump bump is real. Plus, how many Americans are really dreaming of a woke Christmas?
Oh, so dry. This winter dryness is not it, especially when I have so many holiday looks to pull off. Thankfully, I know just the thing. And it's in stock nearby.
Does that help you want to use Google? I don't know. It's just a question. Google, the latest company to go woke and wild in an ad. You can imagine the responses. Power Panel next.
Russia with Ukraine. We didn't have Israel October 7th. We didn't have the Afghanistan disaster. We didn't have inflation. We had no inflation. And we had a very strong economy. And we're going to do that again. But I think we're going to even up it because now we have experience that we didn't have.
President-elect Trump rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange this morning. His first time ever doing that. He has been named one other time to Time Magazine's Person of the Year. So that's this year, too. And, of course, now half the day is gone. So 39 and a half days until Trump is back in the Oval Office. And new polling shows people are feeling optimistic. A Fox survey finds 54% of voters say they are hopeful post-election. Another national poll shows 55% of Americans approve of the way that Trump is handling the presidential transition. A new op-ed sums it up this way. National mood shift since Trump's win is reviving America's lost vigor. Trump's incoming press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, with this.
There's a real palpable spirit out there. People feel more optimistic because they know we're going to have a real leader again who's going to make this country safe and strong and wealthy.
A recent New York Times piece focused on 14 people who voted for Trump despite having some misgivings in the lead up to the election. Here's a quote. The idea of America moving on from politics and actually being more united than it seems to be was a core idea for many in the group. They said they were tired of being criticized for holding conservative or contrary opinions and thought a lot of other Americans were too. Alexa Henning, former Trump advisor and former communications director for Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Morgan Harper, former Ohio Democratic Senate candidate. Great to have you first, or both.
Thank you.
Morgan, I'm going to come to you first. Welcome to the program. What do you make of this optimism? I mean, yours was the party of joy, and now people have it.
Well, I think it's pretty normal after a presidential election that went a positive way for a certain candidate for people to be enthusiastic towards that candidate. I think what remains to be seen is just how much the president-elect intends to follow through on some of the promises he made on the campaign trail around issues that people care a lot about. And as we know, the economy was front and center. And even in this Time magazine piece that came out today, we see him previewing a little bit that he might not be able to address things like high prices, the cost of living. And if that's so, he might find a situation where governing is a lot different than being a candidate.
Alexa, do you have a rebuttal to that?
I think that it's not just the folks that voted for President Trump, it's the entire country, and it's also the world. And everyone seems to have, taken a deep breath and a sigh of relief. And, whether Joe Biden is going to remember his legacy or not, the American people are. And it was all doom and gloom, and no one had faith that these leaders were going to fix anything. In fact, they broke everything, and President Trump is already fixing things. I mean, Tom Homan is already meeting with Greg Abbott. He's meeting with folks around the country to try to stop the flow of illegal immigrants into this country. You see deals coming to fruition with Canada and Mexico. The president was already at Notre Dame and that reopening. I mean, he is already retaking the world stage because Biden and Kamala have just disappeared, more so than they were during their presidency.
I'll move to this. Google is the latest company to spark backlash over a super woke ad. It's a Christmas shopping push, which features a non-binary beauty influencer searching for skincare products using Google.
So dry. This winter dryness is not it, especially when I have so many holiday looks to pull off. Thankfully, I know just the thing. And it's in stock nearby. Hydrated skin is a gift to everyone. No wrapping needed. Happy holidays to me.
Well, biologically, he does shave, so that exfoliation should help as well. That's just science. Social media reaction here, just what you might think. One red state writer with Google, what should we do for our Christmas ad? Normals. Maybe a family sharing gifts around a tree? Google. Sorry, best we can do is a dude prancing around in women's clothing. Now, all of that was opinion that we gathered. Another user writes, another out-of-touch company failing to read the room. One more. Why would you purposefully Bud Light yourself? We've seen the same thing from Jaguar recently. The company's recent rebrand included a different kind of ad with dancers, but not a single car was in it, so I don't know if they'll be selling many Jaguars. And of course, the notorious Bud Light botched campaign, that company faced tanking sales and a boycott after its disastrous partnership with a transgender influencer. Google with a statement on its new ad. Here it is. To put it into perspective, this was a single sponsored Instagram post representing a fraction of a % of a much wider Google shopping campaign. Reverse order now. Alexa, it got a lot of attention.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how you can look at the landscape. And I mean, you said it, Harris, from the New York Times. These American people, they just want to be able to afford gas and groceries and live in safe communities. This just isn't working. This is exactly how Biden and Harris ran their campaigns. They spent 6 figures creating sets for podcast hosts instead of helping people in North Carolina. This is exactly what people do not want. And I don't know how long it's going to take for, Democrats to understand that or companies to understand that either. But, this is not what the American people care about.
And keeping it on those politics, Morgan, it is interesting because when you Google, you're supposed to get the facts that come up and those things that help you to go on and do what you need to do in life. And it's even aided by artificial intelligence now. So it's supposed to be even more specific.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even claim to be an expert in corporate advertising. Clearly, Google made a call here that this was in their best interest. But look, I think the more important point is Google has too much power. If all of us want to care a lot less about what Google's doing and what they're spending money on, then we should expect and hope that President-elect Trump's Department of Justice will continue the legacy from his first term and this Biden administration and breaking them up and forcing them to divest some of their current assets so none of us have to worry about what Google's doing.
Interesting. Morgan and Alexa, thank you very much for being with me.
Thanks for having me.
President Biden is commuting the sentences of more than 1,000 Americans' reactions to the largest act of clemency in modern history.
Liberty Mutual customized my car insurance, so I saved hundreds. With the money I saved, I thought I'd get a wax figure of myself. Cool, right? Look at the Craftsman.
They cannot be genuine for 30 seconds and just say you're not on the side of the black man this time. Why can't you just not be on the side of the black man this time? Because he's wrong. Scott Jennings, let me say this real quick. Shout out to Scott Jennings. I heard him on Mike Gallagher's show the other day. He did an incredible job. First of all, why are people still talking about Daniel Penny at this point? I do not understand why people still in their feelings and their butt hurt. Stevie Wonder can see that Daniel Penny should not be in court. He shouldn't have been prosecuted. None of those things should have happened. Daniel Penny did not do anything that he shouldn't have done and that I wouldn't encourage other men to do when it comes to defending the lives of other people when somebody's deranged and crazy. Very easy, very simple. I don't know why no one's talking about Jordan Neely's criminal history. And I will say, Jordan Neely is a sad situation. It's unfortunate. Many of you guys probably don't know his mom was murdered by her boyfriend who was abusing her, chopped up and put in a suitcase. I don't know if he chopped her up, but she was found in a suitcase on the side of the highway when he was a young kid. And where was his daddy at? The same man that's out right now trying to grift and sue and make money. Where was he at when his son was living with his mom who got killed, and then he was in foster care and he was homeless for the last I don't know how many years? Where was daddy at? Jordan Neely got arrested 41 times. He assaulted 2 women on the subway system, broke the woman's eye orbital, at least one woman. Where was daddy at? Where were the activists at? Where were y'all at when Jordan Neely needed you the most, suffering from schizophrenia, and then also using synthetic marijuana? That's how he ended up losing his life. The stress of resisting from Daniel Penny and then using synthetic marijuana and being schizophrenic is how the man lost his life. Why are we still talking about this? But Scott Jennings got you covered. My brother from another mother. We'll pull that clip up, and I want you guys to listen to Scott Jennings put the smack down on these people on CNN. I don't think he know how to do anything else but win. All he do is win, 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 no matter what. Scott Jennings, roll.
And Bernardo, you've actually said you weren't shocked by this, that after like a decade of
looking at New York juries, you weren't surprised. How come?
No, I wasn't surprised at the verdict. Was it the right verdict? Absolutely not. I think he should have been found guilty of criminally negligent homicide. But I wasn't surprised given where it was tried, New York County, and the jury pool that you have in New York County, and the amount of media coverage that this case has gotten ever since the very beginning from when he was arrested. And let's not forget that law enforcement originally let him loose. However, I will say I think the biggest mistake that was made was when the prosecutor dismissed the manslaughter in the second-degree charge on Friday. I think that left a negative taint on the case for those jurors. So whoever was standing
and for context for people, the jury said it was essentially kind of deadlocked. They were struggling, and they ended up dropping one of the charges, I assume, in the hopes that they might find for the lesser charge.
Yeah, so what I think is the prosecutor hedged all her bets that the issue was with the elements of the crime, and that's why she was fine and comfortable with saying, well, I'll dismiss the manslaughter in the second degree, and I'll just let you decide as to the criminally negligent homicide. But for those jurors that were probably steadfast on that this man is guilty on manslaughter in the second degree, now they're left with egg on their face when they're looking at the other jurors and
Why?
be like,
Why couldn't they have just said he's guilty of that? Okay, you're saying he's not guilty of man two. Well, then I feel if I felt he was guilty of manslaughter in the second degree, then I definitely feel he's guilty of the lesser included charge of criminally negligent homicide. But in fact, that's not what happened. They got rid of the top count. The jury focused on justification, self-defense. The last question they asked substantively on Friday was, we need the definition of what is a reasonable person, because that's what you need to use for self-defense.
Well, if they were
they came back not guilty.
If they were focused on justification, why were they deadlocked on Friday then? Because if it's justification is not an issue, then it's not guilty across the board, so there's no deadlock. So it wasn't a
Before we move on, I want to
issue.
mention something that you mentioned from the closing arguments. One of the questions that the attorney raised, which is, I think it was, would you rather ride the subway?
Which was completely
with
improper.
Daniel Penny
It was
or
improper.
Jordan
Not
Neal?
as not for a defense attorney, it's not improper for a prosecutor.
Hold on. I just want to let me bring it back. Let me bring it back like a Cadillac with two flats with cat in the hat, smoking crack in the back. All right. So the premise here is that clearly the prosecutors were playing games with Daniel Penny's case. They're playing games, right? It is improper for them to arbitrarily just make the decision to say we're going to drop this charge because they were deadlocked. So we're gonna just dismiss this charge. Oh, go to the next charge. We can get him on that. Let's just dismiss this charge. You guys should have dismissed it at the very beginning. You should have never charged them with it if you didn't think they could do it. What they did is they threw the book at Daniel Penny hoping something stick. Clearly it didn't stick, and clearly the people woke up to the reality of the fact that the guy's not getting.
That's the truth about that. That's exactly what they did.
Now they're having this argument about whether or not the defense brought up the fact that would you rather ride on the transit system with Jordan Neely or Daniel Penny. Then I think it's very clear. This woman don't like that, but that was a good tactic from the defense to say, put this in perspective. Is the guy dangerous or not? Was Daniel Penny justified or not? Roll the clip.
Proper. Not for a defense attorney. But you're allowed to get away with a lot of stuff as a defense attorney because you're up against it. The prosecutor can't say that. A defense attorney can definitely.
I don't believe that I'm sitting between two lawyers and neither of you have defined criminal negligence. Because criminal negligence it's carelessness is going beyond what a reasonable person would do.
And the jury
is it reasonable?
Found it was reasonable.
No, excuse me, I didn't ride all 2 hours up here for you to yell over. It's not reasonable to kill somebody for yelling. He was yelling on the subject. There's no way that they could know his criminal record.
Hold on. This is why y'all ain't never gonna be nothing if you don't change the way you act. Why come the black man that gets on here is sitting? You can't kill a man because he's yelling. Well, first of all, the intent wasn't to kill him. That's why Daniel Penny is free. It wasn't his intent. His intent was to restrain the man until the police arrived. That was his intent and his motive. The guy wasn't just yelling. If he was just yelling, Daniel Penny would be in jail right now. And I would be making a video saying it was unjustified. He wasn't just yelling. Everybody yells on the train. But when you throw your jacket off and you say, I'm gonna start taking the lives of people on this train, I don't care about going to jail. If y'all don't give me some water, some food, I'm gonna start, you know what I'm saying? Taking people's lives. I'm trying not to use the K word. Then you gotta take action. And Daniel Penny had to approach him from behind. He wasn't face to face with the guy. He was such a threat, he had to sneak up on him and get him because he was so insane, in my personal opinion. And they know he was on drugs and they know he was schizophrenic. But to the man of the melanin, he just yelling on the train and he get killed. This is one thing that bothers me, and we'll get to Scott Jennings here in a second. This is one thing that bothers me. They always jump to, does he deserve to die? Well, the attempt wasn't to take his life. The attempt was to apprehend him until law enforcement came. Subsequently, unfortunately, the guy didn't survive. It's the same thing with police shootings. If the guy run up on you and you're using deadly force justifiably and you shoot him one time, the intent is to eliminate him as a threat. It's not to take his life. In some cases, people live through that. In some cases, people don't live. The death part is not evaluated when it comes to whether or not the use of force was justified and reasonable. They say free, but what they really mean is see the fine print. There's no shortage of ads from big wireless carriers offering the latest iPhone for free. But look deeper, you'll realize to qualify, you need to trade in your phone valued at $1,000. You need to be on the $100 a month unlimited plan and pay the $35 activation fee. That's a lot of money for a free phone. Don't fall for it. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, has a better option. Get a brand new iPhone 14, which has all the bells and whistles that you need, plus get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot, all for $50 a month. Now, how about that? Half the price of the big guys, and you'll get a new iPhone powered by America's most dependable 5G network. I want y'all to do this. Dial pound 250 and say Brandon Tatum. Pure Talk's U.S. customer service team will make the switch easy and breezy.
Autopilot mode
Plus,
enabled.
when you dial pound 250 and say Brandon Tatum, you'll get an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk, America's wireless company. Protocol.
They didn't know if he was mentally ill. They couldn't know any
They
of
knew
that.
it was mentally
All they knew is that he was yelling on the subway. He was 140 pounds soaking
were
wet.
witnesses.
Who was he going to kill? He was unarmed.
Solomon,
There's no way he was
there were
going to kill
witnesses
anybody.
who said he clearly appeared to be mentally ill. That's what the jurors heard. They heard the witnesses on the subway.
But it doesn't give you a free pass to kill because you see someone that's
Okay,
mentally
hold on. This
ill.
side of the table, I want to bring in the politics of this because when I hear lawmakers hailing Penny as a hero, as a good Samaritan, really being promoted, can you help me understand the thinking? Just we started at the top of the show talking about the killer of the United Healthcare CEO being hailed in similar terms.
Yeah, let me just help you understand. If you're on the American left tonight, here's my chart. The good guys today, Daniel Penny. The bad guys, Luigi Mangione. It seems to me.
How do you?
Everybody
what's
on the
the
left,
chart for victims?
I'm just telling you what I see out in the world.
I know. I
What
just want you to
see out in
finish
world
the
today,
chart.
Which
victim
my
is
chart?
good and
Make your own
victim is
chart.
bad?
What I'm telling you is
That's not on the second page?
People on the left
Scott,
can't seem to tell the difference between the good guys and
you
the
about
bad guys.
people on the left. I'm asking you whether you consider this person.
We had people praising
I want
Luigi
to know
and
whether
attacking
you
Penny.
think that,
One is good,
as
one is
Congressman Crane does, that Daniel Penny should get the Congressional Gold Medal to recognize his heroism. I'm not asking you about anyone.
I think he ought to get medal. I think they ought to build a statue to this guy in New York City.
I think that race, I think that, and I'm going to say it. I'm going to say the dreaded R word. Race plays a role in this, right? And so we see it. Yes, absolutely, because statistics say that.
Wasn't there a similar case in New York City at the same time this one was going on?
That when people kill people who are white, they tend to get harsher sentences, especially if they're people of color.
What about the Jordan Williams case?
That is what happens in our criminal justice system.
First of all,
no, I'm not going to stop because race absolutely plays a role in it.
I said, what about the Jordan Williams case here in New York? Same situation. African American gets on a subway, ends up killing a guy. Grand jury tosses it out at the exact same time as the Penny case.
What about
But
Bernard
that's different. That's different because
What's
he
different?
used the same weapon that the alleged victim had. So he was using his own weapon. He was met with deadly physical force. Jordan Neely, all he had in his pocket was a muffin.
All right, listen, guys.
he
First of
was
all,
threatened.
this is not a left-right issue. I'm on the left. And I actually think this was the right decision. Because the reason I think this is the right decision is because that's what the jury decided. And juries tend to get this stuff right. And that's what we have to believe in. There were multiple witnesses that were people of color. There were multiple people on the jury that were people of color. I think it's not really okay to call this a race issue. One of the guys who helped hold him down was a black man. He, testified too on his behalf. Like, this is not a race issue. The jury who spent days and days and days and days listening to detailed facts came to this conclusion.
What?
Do I think he's a hero? No. Do I think he was a good Samaritan trying to protect people? Yeah. But there's a difference because somebody died, and that really is awful. Now, I'm
Here's a
not
fact.
saying that it's okay that
And
somebody
Daniel
died.
Penny agrees with
I'm
you.
just
All right, stop.
saying-
But Daniel Penny.
Stop right there. You stop it right now. Listen, Scott Jennings made sense. He had a good argument. A little bit further to the right, he had a good argument. The lady next to Scott Jennings was a little more balanced, nuanced, but she had a great argument. It made perfect sense. It's not a race issue. The jurors are the ones that deliberate on evidence that they either watch at the trial or that's presented to them that they deliberate on in closed quarters. This is what they do. 99% of people that hear about this case, talk about this case, did not watch every hour of what the jurors heard from the prosecutor and the defense. You didn't hear it. You weren't privy to the evidence. You didn't get to watch more evidence. You didn't get jury instructions. You didn't get none of that. So the jurors have a better perspective than the layman just watching television. Why? Jesus, help me understand. Why does Scott Jennings make sense? The lady next to Scott Jennings, this guy makes sense. Why is it that the melanated is something in the water? This lady is not making any sense. This guy is deranged, and she's making every excuse she can for a criminal. Why? Somebody help me. And you know what it also correlates with, and I hate to say it because I wish it wasn't true. I wish I was lying right now and I was deceived. What it correlates with is voting, right? Black women voted 80-some% for Democrats. Black men voted overwhelmingly for Democrats. Hispanic men were balanced, and white people were balanced. It's something in the water with the melanated people that they cannot be genuine for 30 seconds and just say you're not on the side of the black man this time. Why can't you just not be on the side of the black man this time? Because he's wrong. They refused to acknowledge that he threatened people. And the lady said it. There was black people, white people that all testified as witnesses saying they felt threatened. Some of them said it was the scariest day of their lives. How is that a thing? And you guys disregard all the colored people and all of the Mexicans and diverse people that had a problem with Jordan Neely in order to defend a criminal. You won't defend the mothers and the women who were afraid of him on the train. They don't count. Their voices don't count. You couldn't care less. But the thug that ended up losing his life at the hands of a good Samaritan, y'all somehow find every justification to defend that. Why is it just the black folk? CNN, get some more contributors on the conservative side that are black so we don't look completely stupid every day. Go to clip.
He's with
Daniel
you
Penny,
that somebody dies. It's awful.
He was still alive when the paramedics got him.
So there were
and they
two
ended
voices.
up
There were two
delaying
voices on
their
the video.
attention to him because they were afraid he might be dangerous to them or have disease.
All right, this is important. There were two voices.
One
One of them
second.
says you don't have to catch a murder charge, though, man. Right? He didn't stop choking him at this point. So, I mean, he knew that there was a risk that this man was going to die, and it's a shame that a bystander had to tell him that, and he did not stop at that point.
Because nobody came to help him. They
Then-
were just talking at him.
then-
no one was
As soon as the
helping.
police came, he let go. As soon as he saw law
somebody
enforcement,
came-
he let go.
He's already about to die.
He was about to. He was still kicking.
He had him still
The
alive.
evidence was he was still
140-pound man.
The
on the
jury
ground.
decided
Who was
he
gonna
was
kill?
still alive.
Well, the jury
Do you
also
believe in
decided that Donald Trump was guilty of 34 felonies. He's about to be president.
Okay, before we veer off,
It's a different jury.
No, before we
Look
go there, I
at
want to show you guys.
Jonathan Brand brought both cases.
Juries
Do
aren't
you think
always
that
right.
the jury was wrong in the Donald
Juries
Trump verdict?
aren't always right.
Thank you.
I want to
You
show.
agree with the jury in the Donald Trump?
I think the jury was wrong in Donald
You
Trump's
disagree
verdict.
with the jury here. So
Because juries aren't always right. They're not
Absolutely.
human, just
They
like
know
you.
more than you do.
No,
Yeah, about this case,
No,
they know more than you do.
all I know is it's all on video.
On this, about
It's all on
this case,
video.
they
We
studied
watched
more than
Daniel
you did.
Penny kill this man.
We watched
him kill him.
the jurors heard the state of fear in the other subway riders, and that's the defense of justification.
I'm gonna.
What else needs to be said? Thank y'all. Y'all wrapped up the Daniel Penny scenario. I don't think we have to talk about it anymore. It's very clear who was right and who was wrong. My wife told me that I need to make a shirt that says Daniel Penny, there goes my hero, and make a shirt and all the proceeds go to Daniel Penny's family, because whether you guys know it or not, he's still getting sued by Jordan Neely's family, who wasn't there for Jordan Neely when he was alive, but now that he's dead, they want millions of dollars from Daniel Penny. So he's still getting sued civilly. And I hope that they lose that case civilly. But if somehow he gets sued for $100 million civilly, he's going to have to find some money to pay for it. It's unjustified what they would do to him in that case. Make sure y'all hit the like button, hit the like button, hit the like button.
You die.
Listen, you want to skip this ad. I would too. But what if I told you there's a skip ads for everybody?
It's called Pi, and if that sounds familiar to you, it's probably because you've seen their ads everywhere. It's an ad blocker that works on Twitch, YouTube, Amazon, and everywhere else you go on Chrome. And if that seems too good to be true, it's not. Over 500,000 people have downloaded it in just the past few months. It's available for free on the Chrome store right now, yet you're still watching this ad like an absolute doofus? Incredible. Plus, if you opt in, Pi will actually pay you money to see ads. Crazy, right? Good luck finding another ad blocker out there.
Inspector General Michael Horowitz releasing a brand new report detailing the FBI's handling of the events leading up to and on January 6th. And that's where we are at the top of the new hour. I'm Sandra Smith in New York. John, great to be with you.
This is a pretty big piece of news to kick off the show today, Sandra. I'm John Roberts in Washington. The report reveals that there were a total of 26 confidential human sources in the crowd that day.
David Spunt is live from the Justice Department. He has got the news for us. David.
Sandra, 3 of those were authorized and tasked by the FBI to be there on January 6, 2021. We're coming up on 4 years since that day of the Capitol riot. This IG report specifically focuses on the FBI's handling of confidential human sources, or as we know them, FBI informants. For years, the outgoing FBI director, Chris Wray, has been pressed on reports of undercover agents. According to this new report, there were no undercover FBI agents. However, there were 3 confidential human sources tasked by the Bureau to be in the crowd on January 6th to specifically watch what the report states is concerns over domestic terrorism. Out of those 3, Sandra and John, 1 entered the Capitol, 2 others entered a restricted area. The report says the FBI did not encourage or authorize any sources to go into the building or a restricted area. In addition to the 3 confidential human sources, the FBI told there were 23 that were there on their own. Now, they had worked with the FBI in the past on other cases, but not specifically on the January 6th rally. Some of them entered a restricted area as well. And what stands out in this report, John and Sandra, none of the confidential human sources that entered the U.S. Capitol or a restricted area were prosecuted by the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office. Remember, this is an office that is still arresting nearly 4 years later and prosecuting people with this case. Now, in a response to the Inspector General, the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office says the following. The D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office generally has not charged those individuals whose only crime on January 6, 2021 was to enter the restricted grounds surrounding the Capitol, which has resulted in the office declining to charge hundreds of individuals, and we have treated the confidential human sources as consistent with this approach. Outgoing FBI Director Christopher Wray, who announced that he would be stepping down in the next few weeks yesterday, has been pressed on the FBI's role on January 6. Here's just one clip from last year.
If you are asking whether the violence at the Capitol on January 6th was part of some operation orchestrated by FBI sources and or agents, the answer is emphatically
You're saying no?
No.
You're saying no?
Not
Okay.
violence orchestrated by
Let's move
FBI
on.
sources or agents.
Confidential human sources tasked by the FBI are not undercover agents. These are people that belong to groups like, for instance, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and then became paid FBI informants at certain points in time while still being members of their groups. And of course, John and Sandra, others are not part of any group and just decided to show up to the Capitol for whatever reason and still work with the FBI on the side and provide information. And we're, of course, waiting for more information from Capitol Hill to see if the White House has anything, the Department of Justice, the FBI, as this report just breaking now with the Inspector General.
Got it. Appreciate it. David Spunt on that for us. David, thank you.
All right, let's bring in Fox News legal editor Carrie Urban for more on this. I guess the big questions are, what does all of this mean in the grand scheme of things? Also, of the 3 informants that entered the restricted area and the one that entered the Capitol, were they just there as observers, or did they actually participate? Did they encourage or foment some sort of rebellious activity?
So a confidential human source is a fancy word phrase for a spy. So we know there were 26 paid spies by the FBI present on the Capitol grounds that day, according to this IG's report. Apparently only 3 of them were authorized to be there. So my question, John, is what were the other 23 doing? Now, they weren't, apparently, according to this report, encouraged or directed to be there, but were they told they couldn't be there? Like, what exactly were they doing? And in fact, some of them, as we learned from this report, entered the restricted area, went into the Capitol. Were they inciting anything? Were they enticing anyone to go with them? I really would love to know what exactly they were saying to the people in the groups that they were part of. I also think it's interesting that this report comes out the day after Chris Wray resigns. It seems to me that he may not have wanted to contend with the questions that, of course, are going to emerge from everything that we're learning today. And the other point I'd like to make is something that David Spunch just raised, where he said that Matthew Graves, who's the U.S. attorney here in Washington, D.C., did not prosecute any of those confidential human sources, spies that did enter the Capitol that day. And his office, Graves' office, did put out a statement and said that they did not generally prosecute anyone who just went into the Capitol and didn't commit other crimes. My question there is, what does generally mean? How did they make those decisions? And why weren't those particular paid spies part of that group?
The 23 confidential human sources, just reading through this, Carrie, 3 of them entered the Capitol during the riot. An additional 11 entered the restricted area around the Capitol, to your point. Based on what we have learned so far in the details of this report, how would you characterize the findings?
Well, it's very interesting. I think it's especially interesting given that people who were, some of them were just, I think, internet sleuths and the like, have been talking about this for years. And it was only, I think, a couple of years ago that a DOJ attorney in court made the admission that some of these people were present that day. But if you remember, anyone who even raised the possibility that there were paid FBI spies part of what happened, who were part of what happened on January 6th, they were deemed crazy, conspiracy theorists, and the like. Now, look, confidential human sources are a law enforcement tool that are used in all kinds of situations, and we know that some of these people were apparently part of the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. But again, why so many? What were they doing? What were the conversations they were having? And if they were, in fact, according to the IG and the FBI, not authorized to be there, then why weren't they prosecuted like everybody else who were prosecuted for similar issues?
On that point, you and I were talking about this off camera. So far, as of August, 1,488 people who were there on January the 6th have been charged with some sort of an offense. 894 of those people have pled guilty to various offenses. 288 pled guilty to felonies. 606 pled guilty to misdemeanors. Yet none of these confidential informants were charged with anything.
Right, so you have to wonder what were the conversations that were happening behind the scenes. And something else that came out in this report was that the confidential human sources, apparently the information they were providing to the FBI was no different than what everyone else was providing. Like, hey, January 6th, there might be some violence, there might be a thing. So there wasn't any, apparently it sounds like there wasn't anything special that they were revealing. And, you know, again, the questions are, what were those confidential human sources who were, quote, not encouraged or directed to be there by the FBI? What were they saying to the other people in their groups? And the reason I keep raising that is because if, in fact, there were conversations occurring like, hey, let's go in there, let's do that, let's do this. You know, entrapment is a defense. You know, if a government agent induces you to commit a crime, a defendant can raise that in the court of law and say, look, I was trapped into doing something. I was enticed into doing something by the government I otherwise wouldn't have done. Now, the government's response based on this report would probably be, well, they weren't authorized by the government to be there at the time. But then, of course, a question for a judge would be, well, could they have been perceived still as an agent of the government, given that they were, you know, this confidential human source? What did the defendant know about them and their role at the time? I just think this report raises more questions, but certainly at a minimum, gives some credibility to people who have been saying this for so many years.
And I assume that we're never going to learn the names or the identities of the confidential informants. So that will leave open the question as to who it was. We got to jump, but there's so much more to talk about regarding
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Now this.
This is America. Are you telling me that somebody can be flying drones over my town in Pequannock and nobody has any idea what's going on?
They're over our water supply. They're over our power lines. They're over our natural gas pipelines. They're over our 911 communication centers.
But we need to get our hands on one of these and determine that it might not be a foreign adversary testing our defense capabilities and doing surveillance on us.
They've been incredibly stupid and incredibly weak with this. We are a full decade behind where China is with drones. The government claims it's not them. They say it's not them. So who is it?
Growing more puzzling by the hour, those large mysterious drones are buzzing over the Northeast, and the federal government is providing little as far as answers, leaving lawmakers frustrated and residents concerned. So just in a few moments, we are expecting John Kirby at the White House press briefing. Will he get questions about this, and will he have any answers? Jackie Heinrich is waiting for that. She's at the White House.
Well, Sandra, we were told on Tuesday that the president had been briefed, but what that means, we still don't know, because the public hasn't gotten any answers. Neither have the lawmakers. It might just be at this point that Biden was made aware of this situation.
I can tell you the answers that you're not getting in public are the same answers that we're not getting in private. It's just one more example of how the Biden administration doesn't impose accountability, doesn't point to a single official or agency and say, you're in charge here.
It seems as if this administration forgot the lessons of the 2023 spy balloon. For over a week then, Biden faced growing calls to shoot the thing out of the sky. It was a clear violation of U.S. airspace and international law. And after mounting pressure, he finally called on the military to present options, and Northcom took it out with an F-22 Raptor off the coast of South Carolina, but only after it traversed the entire country, collecting intelligence from sensitive sites. Northcom says this time they haven't been asked to help yet. Quote, local law enforcement and the FBI are currently investigating. At this time, we have not been requested to assist with these events. If these incidents require additional DoD assistance, the Secretary of the Military Department or relevant DoD component head concerned can coordinate with U.S. Northcom for an enhanced or increased response. Members of the president's own party are calling on him to shoot down these drones.
They should be shot down if necessary because they're flying over sensitive areas, whether it's planes that may be jeopardized or security at military bases, if only to tell the American people who owns them, who's flying them, what they are. The lack of information is absolutely unacceptable.
Now, the drones have been flying over sensitive sites in New Jersey. Even though the government cannot so far say who they belong to, they have said that they don't believe they belong to a foreign adversary, but how they're able to say that is still pretty unclear, Sandra.
Okay. Jackie Heinrich live at the White House for us. Thank you. We'll get brand new reaction and analysis from former State Department spokesperson Morgan Ortagus and New Jersey State Assembly Whip and former military helicopter pilot Brian Bergen. And they will be joining us a bit later in the show.
Do you believe that gay people should be allowed to serve in the military?
Yes.
You said, can you just respond to the CNN report this morning? It was highlighting some of your previous comments saying
I don't feel the need to respond to CNN.
All right. Defense Secretary nominee Pete Hegseth making more rounds on Capitol Hill today, meeting right now with his first Democratic Senator, John Fetterman. We'll bring you any news that comes out of that, plus this.
Incredible morning on Wall Street. President-elect Donald Trump ringing the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange as he is named Time Magazine's Person of the Year. Jason Miller, senior advisor to his transition team, reacts to all of that and where the confirmation battles stand right now. He'll join us next. Fox News alert happening right now. Incoming border czar Tom Homan is meeting with New York City Mayor Eric Adams. The Democrat mayor says he's willing to work with the Trump administration to deport illegal migrants who commit crimes from the city, but stopped short of saying that he'll end sanctuary city policies altogether. Brand new internal ICE data obtained by Fox News showing more than 1 million illegal migrants in the U.S. have final orders of removal. Homan says mass deportation efforts will start in sanctuary cities like Chicago. Raymond Lopez, the Democratic Chicago alderman, joins us now. Always good to have you on the program, sir. Welcome to you, and thanks for being here. So, ground zero, Chicago will be for these deportations to begin. How are people reacting to that?
You know, I met with Tom Homan earlier this week on a one-on-one, and we discussed what we could do to work together. And there's been quite an uproar in the city of Chicago, even now with our own governor saying that he is now willing to sit down with Tom Homan and President-elect Donald Trump to discuss how we can work together to remove some of the most dangerous, undocumented, and migrants with temporary protective status from the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois.
I would say support them should be their number one priority.
They have to start taking
And,
Tom Homan's threats.
Yeah, I'm playing
seriously.
some news
But
drum
more
this
specifically,
string.
this is why Donald
Trying to
Trump
educate my crowd, yeah.
base and expand the Republican tent within the African American and Latino voters, because they want to see action on immigration as well. They're tired of feeling as though they've been forgotten about, especially when it comes to those individuals who are here and then choose, once they are here, to commit heinous, dangerous acts in our neighborhoods.
You know, he did not mince words, Tom Homan, when he was standing there in Chicago and told people the way it is for residents in that city. Listen.
Chicago's in trouble because your mayor sucks and your governor sucks. And we're going to start right here in Chicago, Illinois. Now, if your Chicago mayor doesn't want to help, he can step aside. But if he impedes us, if he knowingly harbors and conceals an illegal alien, I will prosecute him.
Your mayor sucks, your governor sucks. That was met with applause and cheers in that Democrat-led city. That's a pretty incredible thing. And you mentioned the meeting with Homan. You posted it on X with the picture standing with the border czar, the incoming border czar. You said, great meeting, incoming border czar Tom Homan. We must enforce the law, starting with removing those committing dangerous, violent crimes with impunity because they have asylum protections. I can't help wondering, every time I talk to you most recently, Raymond, are you still a Democrat?
You know, I'm still what Democrats used to be. I'm the Democrats that people remember going back to the Clinton days and even early on in the Obama years. But I'm also where sanity lies in a city like the city of Chicago. I'm a reminder that we don't have to go to the extreme left and out crazy the crazy just to get elected here. We can use common sense. We can think for ourselves. And there's no shame in working across the aisle for those issues that go beyond politics, like public safety, like national security. And I think this is where we can show true leadership as a Democratic Party if we're willing to do that. We've seen what this last election has done when you try to just placate to the extremes within our political wing, you lose. And I think nobody wants to keep losing, particularly my party. But more specifically, I'm worried about those long-term undocumented who have been forgotten by the Democratic Party, the dreamers who were promised a path and never saw it under Biden or Obama. Trump has said he will address that, and I think Homan's going to work with our mayors one way or another, but he also needs to work with industry like the National Restaurant Association to help people come out of the shadows and start doing things the right way as opposed to always finding end runs around the law.
Wow. It's just pretty incredible. You got to think those residents, so many of them that have joined us in the years leading up to the election day that said, they're a Democrat, but they can't keep letting what's happening to this city happen. And we hear you, and you're always a strong voice for that city. Thanks for joining us, Raymond. Good to have you on the program.
Sandra, thank you.
All right.
What's your message to Republican senators up on Capitol Hill?
All right, let's move to our second position.
President-elect Trump's cabinet picks continuing their efforts to sway over senators, even reaching across the aisle to try to garner support from Democrats. Aisha Husney is live on Capitol Hill with the latest. Aisha, what big meetings are going on there today?
Well, John, I've got my head on a swivel here because any moment now we could see the Defense Secretary nominee Pete Hegseth walk right behind me and into Senator John Fetterman's office, a Democrat. And it should be no surprise, Fetterman says, that he is meeting with Hegseth because, as he puts it, this is a very important position, Defense Secretary, and he should be talking to whoever is nominated for that. As you know, Fetterman's already backed another Republican nominee, and that is Elise Stefanik for UN Ambassador ambassador. So this comes as no surprise for at least this senator. Here's what Pete Hegseth said earlier about this upcoming meeting. Watch.
The nice part is there's nothing political about the DOD, and we're going to make sure politics is not a part of it. So meeting with Democrats, just like meeting with Republicans, is a huge part of our approach.
And it's not just Hegseth. Outgoing Democratic Majority Leader Chuck Schumer met with Howard Lutnick. He described Trump's Commerce Secretary nominee as an intelligent and capable man. And Homeland Security Secretary nominee, Kristi Noem has already met with two Democrats, the outgoing Homeland Security Chairman Peters, and then another key Democrat on that committee, Senator Hassan. Now, meanwhile, Republicans are reacting to this MAGA pressure campaign that's been launched against them to try to confirm every Trump nominee. Senator Tillis today warning that could backfire.
They may be making a long-term mistake if they're not careful. Once you've attacked somebody and they vote no, it's very easy for them to vote no for the remainder of a Congress. So that should be kept in mind.
For now, the Trump team does not have any hard no's in the Senate, which they feel very, very good about. And we'll let you know if we see Hegseth come through and bring any news that he makes as soon as he does. John.
All right. I should keep your head on a swivel there. You're going to need it, obviously. All right, let's bring in Jason Miller, Senior Advisor for the Trump-Vance Transition Team. I want to get into the cabinet picks in just a second, but first of all, January the 6th, in this report from Horowitz, the Inspector General, rather, that there were 26 confidential informants in the crowd that day. 3 of them were authorized to be there. This sounds to me like the sort of thing that Kash Patel is going to want to take a look into if and when he becomes FBI director.
Well, this report, in my opinion, raises a lot more questions than it provides answers. You start looking through and so, wait a minute, if there were only 3 that were approved to be there, why were these additional 23 there? What was their role on that day? Were they leading people, whatever action? They definitely would not want to go and put words or ideas in Kash Patel's mouth. I think Kash is going to sail through with his confirmation. He's really impressing people in all of his meetings. He is someone who's very, very well qualified for the job of FBI director. But things like this are why Americans are so frustrated with whether it be the FBI or the DOJ or the politicization that we've seen in law enforcement and in the justice system within the last 4 years. And actually even going further back to that, back to Russia, and all that other nonsense. So this is, I think, a big part of the reason, though, why President Trump won with such a mandate, winning the popular vote, the 312 electorals. Americans are sick and tired of this. They want to see this wiped out. They want to see this gone. They don't see any funny business from law enforcement. And this report today, again, in my opinion, is very, very concerning.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty surprising. In terms of the nominees themselves, we did some polling on how people are feeling about them. RFK Jr. leading the pack with 48% approval. Marco Rubio coming in second, 46. Pam Bondi, 37. Some of them, like Kash, like Scott Bessent, Pete Hegseth, are underwater. But this idea that RFK Jr. gets the highest amount of support, what does that say about all the carping from Democrats in the mainstream media about he's not fit to be in any position in government?
Well, the Democrats clearly didn't get it. They didn't get it on Election Day. They didn't get it this entire election cycle. And they still don't understand this coalition that President Trump put together. RFK Jr. and the Make America Healthy Again movement is something that really, it's not your traditional issue that you see the pollsters go through and talk about. But when we talk about what is being put into foods, what is being fed to our children, what kind of medical attention and care our children getting, this is something that a lot of parents are really concerned about. They see all the different additives and all the things that are put into food, and they look, I mean, you look at, John, at the back of a cereal box, you probably can't even
understand. You can't even pronounce most of them.
I don't know what they are.
And this is something that we're going to be looking at with our Dr. Mark Siegel coming up. But I wanted to stick mainly with these nominees here. Jonathan Swan and Maggie Haberman wrote the New York Times the following on Pete Hegseth's nomination, which seemed to be in jeopardy last week, and then suddenly the president-elect got behind him. He said the president-elect became convinced that letting Pete Hegseth fail would set off a feeding frenzy among senators. What followed was a MAGA swarm that helped salvage his bid, at least for now. But Senator Tom Tillis said moments ago, and I should play a little bit of that, be careful how much pressure you put on senators to get your picks through. Listen to what he said.
I think it's more important to get behind closed doors, address concerns, and have Republicans come together as one than to create controversy. I just think it's a short-term win but a long-term loss if you're not careful with that.
So what do you say in response to that?
Well, I think a lot of that's hyperbole. I think the fact of the matter is President Trump has nominated people that he thinks are going to be the best for the job. Pete Hegseth is going to be a great Secretary of Defense. Full stop. He's someone who's well qualified, 2 Bronze Stars. He served in combat. He knows what it's like to be shot at. So when we talk about decisions being made about sending our young men and women into harm's way, he's someone who can really speak to that at a personal level. I think every single nominee that the president has put forward is going to be very solid. Now, when it comes to whether or not senators are going to be backing any of the nominees or what their decision-making process is, senators take it seriously. They want to have those individual meetings. They want to have the hearings. Right now, there are no hard no's from Republicans for any of President Trump's nominees because they're really good people. They're very good, well-qualified people. And when you see those comments, you see certain senators, I saw that the last clip that you played there. I think also they have to read the electorate and realize when President Trump won with such massive numbers, he has a mandate. Yeah. He should be able to put in his own people and bring about that change that he campaigned on.
People wanted to see what he could do.
Yes.
I think. Well, we'll see if he gets 51 on the Republican side. He might even get a Democrat or two because John Fetterman's saying not bad things about him. So, Jason, good to see you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Now this.
These drones are sophisticated systems, ones that we don't have, that we don't normally see, and we need some real substantive answers. They are dealing with the American public like we're stupid.
Well, lawmakers continue to press the Pentagon on those mystery drones flying over the East Coast. Why that lawmaker...
Secretary of State Antony Blinken meeting with the leaders of Jordan and Turkey to discuss Syria's political transition. He's also urging Syria and its neighbors to ramp up efforts against terrorism. This is Blinken's first visit to the Middle East since the Assad regime's ouster. Trey Yanks live in Damascus now with an up-close look at the Assad regime's prison system. Trey, there were tens of thousands of people inside.
Yeah, John, good afternoon. Look, when you set the scene here in Damascus, Syria, you get a sense of mixed emotions among the civilian population. Today, we saw people celebrating in a central square in the capital city with Israeli fighter jets overhead targeting positions on the outskirts of Damascus, a few miles away inside of a prison. Family members are searching for their loved ones.
My son is innocent. He was just studying in college. This mother cries. Her wailing voice pierces the air of Sadnaya, where hundreds of families search for their loved ones. God willing, Bashar al-Assad will have the same heartache that he has caused us, she adds, him and every single jailer who tortured innocents. To call Sadnaya hell on earth would not do it justice. The English language lacks the words to describe these unimaginable conditions. Crumbling concrete walls are hidden beyond large steel doors. Each space tells a gruesome story of its own.
This prison is just a concrete labyrinth. People are looking all over, trying to find any sort of secret passages or doors where they might be able to find their loved ones. But you see in here, there are just rooms full of clothes, shoes, and other items that belong to these prisoners. They were stripped of everything they had when they arrived here at this prison on the outskirts of Damascus.
While authorities say that no additional rooms or cells are underneath this prison, desperate families cling to hope. My heart was burning. I didn't know where they went to, Sahar al-Menwar says of her 2 sons. I couldn't believe they disappeared. They took them to the Assad gangs.
Unfortunately, these stories are not unique. There are thousands of Syrians currently looking for loved ones that were disappeared under the Assad regime. John?
Yeah, you could just imagine how much concern that there is going on there in Syria for the loss of loved ones. Trey Yanks for us with great reporting again from Damascus. Trey, thank you. Sandra?
More on Syria in just a moment, but first, those growing concerns on those mystery drones spotted all over the East Coast. One lawmaker suggesting Iran is behind them.
Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones. It's everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly. These drones should be shot down.
Let's bring in Morgan Ortegas now, founder of Polaris National Security and former State Department spokesperson. Can't wait to hear what you have to say about this. But first, The Pentagon was directly asked by our own Jen Griffin at the briefing yesterday, Morgan, about that statement from that lawmaker, and this was the response. Listen.
These are not U.S. military drones. Our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary. There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
Okay, so if they have enough information to determine that it's not Iran, why can't they provide the American public with what information they do have, Morgan?
That's a good question, and I think, unfortunately, this administration has lost credibility with the American people because of the mixed messages that they sent over the Chinese spy balloon. Listen, there's something important for our viewers to understand, Sandra. The issue of drones, foreign drones, penetrating U.S. airspace is not new. This has actually been going on reportedly since the beginning of the Biden administration for at least 4 years now. We know that we've spotted drones over our Navy base in Norfolk. We know that it's happened over Bedminster, where the president-elect often resides. So the problem and the challenge isn't new. I would remind everybody, unfortunately, almost 1 year ago, we lost 3 U.S. service members in Jordan through sophisticated drones that were made by the Iranians. When you look at drone swarms, when you look at drones with sophisticated payloads, this is not the future of warfare. In fact, this is the warfare that's happening now in the Middle East, in Russia and Ukraine. I've written about this extensively, Russia's use of Iranian drones against Ukrainian civilians. Ukrainians are now making their own drones and basically took down the Russian Navy with it. So what's the difference now, Sandra? The difference is that the Biden administration operates off of this sort of analysis paralysis. And whenever you have new threats to the homeland, you can't sit around with the lawyers and worry about this legal authority or that legal authority. You have to take swift and decisive action. I think when it comes to the Chinese spy balloons and when it comes to these drone problems that we've seen over the past 4 years, you have an administration that dithers, that operates, again, off of this analysis paralysis. And what you need is the Trump administration, President Trump coming in to say, we're going to take care of these drones. We're not going to allow any of our enemies to permeate our airspace, whether it be through a ballistic missile or whether it be through these new advanced sophisticated drones.
I mean,
this is the future of warfare now, and we're...
Just to be clear, I mean, we don't even have that information. We don't know if these are coming from a foreign entity or an adversary. We don't know who owns them, who's operating them. I mean, it is an absolute mystery, at least to the American public at this point. But it leads to a lot of speculation when we're just given no answers. And there was clearly a meeting yesterday that the governor didn't even attend. So you got to wonder if he knows something that he can't privy the American. There's so much we don't know at this point. But Jeff Andrew, who made the suggestion that these were coming in from Iran, he responded this morning on Fox News Channel to the Department of Defense denying that claim. Listen.
These drones very well could be launched from a ship. It could be hundreds of miles out at sea. These types of drones go much greater distances. These, again, are something that we normally don't see in the United States. So there is a real possibility. Could it be China? Absolutely. Could it be somebody else? It sure could.
Okay, so we'll see where that goes. It is an absolute mystery, and everybody's talking about it. To just have these massive drones up in the sky every night, and so many pictures of them. Morgan, I want to ask you about Secretary of State Antony Blinken in the Middle East today. What's happening in Syria, coming off of Trey Ying's live report there, concerns about whether ISIS could be coming back in. What is your general thinking here? And obviously with a new incoming administration, what the strategy would be in Syria?
Yeah, well, I think the priority for the Biden administration for the rest of their term is to try and get our American hostages out. We still have at least 3 that we know of that are alive, plus, unfortunately, the bodies of the dead Americans, which are incredibly important to us to bring home. And I think Blinken and President Biden's senior team is going to learn what it's like to be able to negotiate with President Trump's threats at your back, because President Trump has explicitly threatened both in his RNC convention speech and in his tweets that Hamas better bring these Americans home. So So I hope that President Trump's threats help Blinken and his team actually get the Americans home. When it comes to Syria, there's a series of very bad options there. The errors in Syria go all the way back to President Obama's second term when he refused to enforce sanctions on Iran, and whenever he effectively propped up Bashar al-Assad, again, not only by not enforcing sanctions, but not making him pay any real cost or any real consequences for killing 500,000 of his own people and using chemical weapons. So I think the United States is lucky that Israel is willing to take this issue on, that they are bombing the chemical weapons facilities, that they remember that they destroyed Syria's nuclear weapons facilities about 15 years ago. So thankfully, once again, Israel is taking on the terrorism problem that could ultimately end up affecting the United States as well.
We'll keep watching all of it. Morgan, great to have you on today. Thank you very much. All right, John.
Thanks, Sandra.
Always good to see Morgan. The incoming Trump administration vowing to put an end to the government's DEI push. Manhattan Institute senior fellow Chris Rufo.
Mayday, here we should go.
You are watching the National News Desk, America's News Now.
FBI Director Christopher Wray makes a decision on his future at the FBI. Is he putting the country first or avoiding a fight with the next president?
These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement.
Whose drones are in the skies over New Jersey? The contradicting messages from the Defense Department and a congressman about how big of a threat these drones are. And then a costly cup, why coffee makers are warning of higher prices coming in the next year, especially for one particularly preferred bean. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Thank you for joining us. And right now, as we come on the air, the East Coast is being blanketed by rain and snow in some areas as an atmospheric river passes over. The worst of the storms, they have passed, but flood warnings are in effect in Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, as well as parts of New York and New Jersey until tomorrow morning. Freezing rain is possible tonight into tomorrow morning as those temperatures drop overnight. Now, wind advisories are also in effect in Georgia and North Carolina. Take a look at the numbers right here. Gusts of winds of 40 miles per hour are possible. All the while, power outages from the line of storms knocked out power to between 10 and 17,000 customers in South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. New tonight, FBI Director Christopher Wray says he intends to resign when President Biden's term ends on January 20th. He was nominated to a 10-year term as director by then President Donald Trump back in 2017. His resignation opens the door for nominee Kash Patel to potentially take the reins of the Bureau during Trump's second term in office beginning next month. The National News Desk, Antra Elnishar, joining us now.
Okay, Patel, get that,
The
bros.
writing was on the wall for FBI Director Christopher Wray. He had virtually no chance of being able to serve out the rest of his 10-year term under the incoming Trump administration. So by saying that he'll step down at the end of the Biden administration, Wray's FBI career is ending.
If he hadn't have stepped down, Trump was going for him, so either way.
After weeks of careful thought, I've decided the right thing for the Bureau is for me to serve until the end of the current administration in January and then step down. My goal is to keep the focus on our mission, the indispensable work you're doing on behalf of the American people every day. In my view, this is the best way to avoid dragging the Bureau deeper into the fray while reinforcing the values
That's covered around, get away while you can.
of how we do our work. Wray has worked for the Department of Justice since 1997, starting as an assistant U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. Moving up the ranks, President George W. Bush nominated him to be the assistant attorney general for the DOJ's criminal division. And in 2017, it was President Trump who chose him to run the FBI. At the time, Trump called Wray an impeccably qualified individual. Since then, Trump has very publicly soured on Wray.
I can't say I'm thrilled with him. He invaded my home. I'm suing the country over it. He invaded Mar-a-Lago. I'm very unhappy with the things he's done.
In a Truth Social post Wednesday, Trump said the resignation of Christopher Wray is a great day for America. And within hours of Wray's announcement, Trump's nominee for FBI Director, Kash Patel, was meeting with Republican senators. Now, big picture so far, Republicans seem to be backing him, while Democrats fear he'll use the FBI to go after people Trump views as his enemies.
What more do we know, Atra, about what Wray had to say today?
Well, he seemed to almost get emotional at one point. The FBI sent us over his full remarks, and there was one that stood out to me, especially anyone in law enforcement, especially the head of the FBI, they stay pretty stoic, pretty tough, keep a straight face. But he did say this. He said, quote, "This is not easy for me. I love this place. I love our mission, and I love our people. But my focus is and always has been on us and doing what's right for the FBI." So he'll stay in this job, Dee Dee, until noon on January 20th.
All right, live from Washington, D.C., Antra Elnishar, thank you. New evidence now links Luigi Mangione, the suspect in the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, directly to the crime scene in Manhattan.
First, we got the gun in question back from Pennsylvania. It's now at the NYPD crime lab. We were able to match that gun to the 3 shell casings that we found in Midtown at the scene of the homicide.
Now, that gun was found on Mangione when he was arrested on Monday. The NYPD commissioner also said fingerprints were found on a water bottle and a Kind bar near the crime scene, and they say they were Mangione's. Investigators are looking through handwritten notes found on Mangione, as well as a spiral notebook. Multiple sources report his writings describe plans to kill a CEO. Detectives believe the motive may have been fury at the health insurance industry and corporate greed related to personal health issues. New York City police are urging companies to increase security out of fear that Thompson's killing could inspire more attacks. Police are are finding wanted posters popping up all across the city, with some of them saying Wall Street CEOs should not feel safe. It comes as a growing number of online posts have glorified the shooting. New Jersey Congressman Jeff Van Drew told Fox News today he believes the drones over New Jersey the past few days are not domestic and gave a dire warning, calling them a clear and present danger.
Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones. These drones should be shot down. Whether it was some crazy hobbyist that we can't imagine, or whether it is Iran, and I think it very possibly could be, they should be shot down.
To be clear, though, this warning is not shared by the Pentagon, and at today's briefing, they said this claim by Congressman Van Drew is completely false.
At this time, we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but at no point were our installations threatened when this activity was occurring.
We also learned Ryan Routh, the man accused of the second assassination attempt on Donald Trump earlier this year, is looking to delay the scheduled February trial until December of next year. His attorneys were in court today, saying they are not even close to being ready for trial. The National News Desk, Mike Magnoli, is in Fort Pierce with the latest.
Ryan Routh's federal trial was supposed to begin in February, but his court-appointed attorneys have moved to delay the proceedings because they say federal prosecutors have gathered so much evidence, much of it technical, and they're struggling to review it in a timely manner. 17 cell phones from Routh's car and homes where he's lived. The defense says it's just too much to sift through before trial. For their part, prosecutors want to know if the defense intends to use an insanity plea. But the defense isn't ready to disclose if that's their strategy. In this pretrial hearing, Judge Cannon said she's willing to add a little time, but probably not as much as Routh's team wants.
Axios is reporting witnesses are claiming Congresswoman Nancy Mace is over-dramatizing an apparent assault yesterday. U.S. Capitol Police arrested a person last night who is accused of physically accosting the Congresswoman. The South Carolina Republican posted on X that she was attacked over her, quote, fight to protect women. She says she was injured from the incident and has is reporting witnesses are claiming Congresswoman Nancy Mace is over-dramatizing an apparent assault yesterday. U.S. Capitol Police arrested a person last night who is accused of physically accosting the Congresswoman. The South Carolina Republican posted on X that she was attacked over her, quote, fight to protect women. She says she was injured from the incident and has a brace on her wrist. Capitol Police say the incident happened in the Rayburn office building, but it's unclear what exactly happened. With a week and a half to go in this congressional session, the bipartisan-supported Kids Online Safety Act is facing an uphill battle with House leadership. Despite endorsements by Donald Trump Jr. and Elon Musk, Speaker Mike Johnson and Republican leader Steve Scalise are not totally on board.
We're working through all of it. I'm grateful for the hard work that's been done. I'm grateful for the support behind it. I think all of us 100% support the principle behind it, but you got to get this one right.
The Senate-passed bill is the first attempt by Congress to force tech platforms to do more to protect children online, like changing certain features that stoke addiction or allow unwanted contact from strangers. Speaker Johnson says they're still concerned about censorship. Johnson is joined in opposition to the bill by Facebook's parent company Meta and tech lobbying group NetChoice. Waiting until the next Congress would likely kill the current bill. New information, a child in Marin County, California, north of San Francisco, is believed to have contracted bird flu. While the sickness has not been confirmed, the child suffered from a fever and vomiting after drinking raw milk. No other family members got sick. The child has since recovered. There have been 32 confirmed cases of bird flu in California this year and 58 nationwide. Most of those people have been dairy workers who were exposed to infected livestock. transgender medical care for minors is still allowed in Montana following a state Supreme Court ruling today. The justices upheld a lower court decision that paused a state law banning this care, finding that it likely violates Montana's constitution. The case against the law will now go to trial. This as the UK just banned puberty blockers for minors with gender dysphoria. Ryan Boardwalk, the Wisconsin man who faked his own death, was in court today facing an obstruction charge. The 45-year-old was reported missing in August after a kayaking trip on Green Lake. Authorities thought he drowned, but he had allegedly traveled to Europe. He is married, a father of 3. Sheriff Mark Cottle said he returned because of his family.
He's cooperated with us. Came back from the United States. He returned on his own.
And Macy's has confirmed today a former employee hid $151 million in expenditures on earnings reports. Last month, it was estimated that between $132 and $154 million was unaccounted for, delaying Macy's quarterly earning results. This announcement comes as Macy's is looking to downsize. The company said last February they are planning to close 150 stores nationwide in the coming years. A change in buying habits of Americans towards online sales also contributing to the decision. And grocery chain Albertsons is not only giving up on its merger with fellow grocery behemoth Kroger, it is now suing its would-be partner, saying it didn't do enough to secure regulatory approval and for not offering a suitable divestiture package. Yesterday, a federal judge knocked down the multi-billion-dollar merger, agreeing with the FTC and DOJ's argument that it would create a monopoly likely to hike prices. And Americans don't seem to approve of President Biden's decision to pardon his son Hunter, who was convicted on gun and tax charges. According to a new AP poll, only 2 in 10 people say it was the right choice. This aligns with bipartisan criticism of the move on Capitol Hill. The president repeatedly said he would not pardon his son. The White House says he struggled with the decision. Coming up, efforts to lower inflation hit a roadblock. The latest numbers and what they mean for future interest rate cuts. Plus, a migrant surge like no other. We're going to take a look at the eye-popping numbers and how they've impacted the country as a whole. Then, the Christmas gift a devoted husband in Iowa put together for his wife with Alzheimer's that the whole neighborhood helped with. We're back in 90 seconds. Numbers and how they've impacted the country as a whole. Then, the Christmas gift a devoted husband in Iowa put together for his wife with Alzheimer's that the whole neighborhood helped with. We're back in 90 seconds.
If you have a swollen prostate, do not drink cold water. After ignoring it for months, I finally learned that my prostate was squeezing my bladder.
Evacuation orders because of a raging wildfire in the Malibu area. Thousands of people are still under evacuation orders because of a raging wildfire in the Malibu area of California. At least 20,000 people have been told to leave since the fire began Monday, including performers Dick Van Dyke and Cher. The fire has reached 4,000 acres and is now 7% contained. At least 7 properties have been destroyed. Inflation is still a problem in the United States. In fact, new numbers have the annual inflation rate at 2.7% last month, an increase from October and still above the Federal Reserve's target of 2%. But economists were expecting this, and traders still believe the Fed will cut interest rates again next week by 1/4 point. Coffee could become more expensive next year because of weather disruptions in the supply chain. The price of Arabica coffee beans hit a record high yesterday, and coffee prices have jumped around 80% this year. Drought and heavy rain in Brazil and Vietnam may have impacted crops, and coffee is becoming more popular. Higher costs may get passed on to you. A historic record set that played a part in the outcome of the election. There's new information showing the migrant surge in the past 4 years surpassed the levels of mass immigration in the 1800s. Here's Christine Frizzau to break it all down, including the staggering number of those considered criminals by the government.
They are portraits of the immigration boom in America. The late 1800s drawing in millions of Europeans to the United States, setting records not broken until now. The New York Times digging into the numbers, finding the recent immigration surge has now been the largest in U.S. history, with 8 million arriving just since President Joe Biden took office, more than half of those illegal, representing an increase of 0.6% of the total population, a jump not seen since the 1850s, and believed to be a key factor in the 2024 election swinging to Donald Trump.
Most Americans are sympathetic, kind-hearted people who feel like the Biden administration was criminally negligent in protecting us by having a broken border.
Warnings now that more than 660,000 migrants who are convicted felons or are facing criminal charges were on the Immigration and Customs Enforcement docket as of July. 58,000 in New York City alone.
Those who are here committing crimes, robberies, shooting at police officers, raping innocent people, have been a harm to our country. I want to sit down and hear the plan on how we're going to address them.
Democrats on Capitol Hill worried what mass deportation will mean for those without criminal histories and for the U.S. economy as a whole.
In his first term, President Trump deported dreamers who came to the U.S. as children. He deported veterans who had served our nation. He deported essential workers who care for our families, build our homes, and make sure we have food on the table in the morning.
As of now, the mass deportation plan carries on, with Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, confirming he plans to use a 1,400-acre plot of land offered by the state of Texas for a detention and processing facility for those migrants ahead of deportation. I'm Christine Frizzau for the National News Desk.
Krispy Kreme is dealing with a cyber attack. The donut company said today it's been having a hard time fulfilling online orders since it found unauthorized activity on some of its systems last month. Krispy Kreme said it's told federal law enforcement about this problem. The company is concerned the breach will affect its bottom line, but doesn't yet know the full impact. Siri on Apple iPhones, iPads, and Macs can now be integrated with ChatGPT. The updates were released today. So if you ask Siri a complicated question, it'll ask you for permission to use OpenAI. You can also use ChatGPT through certain text menus. This applies to the iPhone 15, iPhone 15 Pro, and iPhone 16. AI is a key part of Apple's iPhone 16 marketing campaign. Certain types of fat can increase your risk of colon cancer, according to a new study in the journal Gut. Eating too many omega-6 fatty acids and not enough omega-3 can prevent your immune system from destroying mutations in your digestive tract. One source of omega-6 is seed oils, like sunflower oil commonly found in processed foods. A good source of omega-3 is fatty fish like salmon. Colorectal cancer is on the rise in young people. And And a breakthrough study showing promise to help extend life expectancy in those with pancreatic cancer. Medical reporter Liz Bonis shares new research on a common vitamin.
Hey there, hello to you. This new study showing a dramatic result in using high doses of vitamin C with pancreatic cancer treatment.
Nikki Hackman and Barb Thornton are celebrating the joys of the season this year. They've both had successful treatment for pancreatic cancer.
I want to be a face of hope for somebody where I didn't see that when I was diagnosed.
At 3 years out, both told me the early warning signs included back pain and yellowing eyes.
People need to listen to their bodies. You need to really pay attention.
Now, as researchers continue to find life-saving interventions in this cancer, Dr. Olubenga Aloakuri, who affectionately goes by Dr. Banga at Ohio's UC Health Cancer Center, told me in this small study,
there were 18 patients that got high-dose vitamin C, 75 grams, given IV 3 times a week with standard of care chemotherapy.
That's a dose so high it has to be given IV. It could not be taken in dietary food or supplements. But the results, he says, for those already even years out with this illness were quite remarkable compared to a control group.
By getting a significant higher amount of vitamin C within your bloodstream, you're actually able to generate hydrogen peroxide.
He says that appears to work against tumor cells so much that not only did the vitamin C group have longer progression-free survival, but also
looking at the overall survival at the end of the day, was almost doubled because it was 8.3 months in the standard of care arm compared to 16 months. 16 months in those that got high-dose vitamin C.
Coming up, some public schools in Ohio could be forced to close because of a new bill. What the schools would have to do to avoid this, that's coming up right after this.
This is heavy. It's warm. Loads of pockets. I'm impressed with it. This is the Bearskin tactical hoodie.
Thousands of men around the world already love wearing the bearskin hoodie instead of their regular hoodies. Why? Because sure, your average hoodie provides good insulation to keep you warm. But as soon as you go outside, the wind blows, the rain pours, and you get cold. That's why we designed the new and improved Bearskin Hoodie 4.0 with improved windsolation technology on the waist, arms, and hood. Plus, now you can attach the new heavy storm rain jacket to the
in some places are
For her, that
Autopilot mode enabled.
Ow. What? What?
Enemy force detected.
Torpedoes, dead ahead.
Enemy cruiser foundered. Our team has taken the lead. Autopilot mode disabled.
Hull breach. We're taking on water quickly.
We've destroyed an enemy cruiser.
Problem solved, sir.